Another week brings another wave of threat actors, malicious payloads, and compromised systems. In today's episode, we'll be diving into some of the latest intelligence being shared by our incredible community over in the LimaCharlie Slack channel. A huge shout out to everyone who contributes. It's because of your insights that we can keep these discussions going. If you find these intel briefings useful and you're not already part of our Slack community, you're missing out. There's a constant flow of interesting conversations and valuable information being shared there in real time, usually more than we can cover in a single episode. You can join the conversation at slack.limacharlie.io. And after a brief hiatus, I'm joined by the one and only Matt Bromley. How are you doing today, sir?
There he is, Chris. What's going on, sir? I'm doing well. Happy to be back here. We did take a little bit of a hiatus, but we are back and ready to talk about some of the crazy things that some of these adversaries have been up to. And there have been some doozies over the past couple of weeks. I mean, I'll tell you what, no matter what you may think about the geopolitical landscape, we are all dealing with active adversaries. That's for sure, Chris. I know we got a lot to dig into, so let's get to it.
Yeah, and I was just going to say to that end, at least we don't have to worry about Russia anymore, right?
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, I worry, no, but we just won't see them anymore.
That's right. All right. This first one's wild, and I want to put it in context at the end, but let's get through and do the thing. So North Korea's state-backed Lazarus Group is believed to be responsible for the largest cryptocurrency heist ever recorded, stealing $1.5 billion from the Bybit exchange. So largest cryptocurrency heist, but I kind of feel like this has to be the biggest heist ever. Like, that is such a ridiculous amount of money.
Again, that we know about. Right. I'm assuming there's someone out there who's like only 1.5 billion, but that doesn't change the fact that it's the largest. I think it's the largest reported cryptocurrency one. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty significant. I'm not gonna lie. This is a lot of money.
Well, I did the math, right? So 1.5 billion in $100 bills would be 15 million $100 bills. Okay. Weighs about a gram each. You put that all together, you end up with 33,000 pounds or 15 metric tons. So could you imagine trying to steal that in real life?
15 metric tons of $100 bills. Convert that into $1 bills, and you got what? 1,500 metric tons?
Something along those lines.
Do they weigh the same? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming $1 bill does not weigh 100th of a $100 bill, right? They probably weigh about the same.
They weigh the same, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean,
you need some forklifts and some pretty big trucks, and
I was gonna say you need a dump truck and a couple of maybe a few tractor trailers. I'm not sure. 18-wheelers. Sorry, I don't know if anyone calls them tractor trailers anymore.
I feel we're off the rails early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So we're back to normal.
Yeah, let's go. So according to cybersecurity researchers, the attackers used sophisticated techniques to breach exchanges' security and siphon funds. Blockchain forensic firms have been working to trace the stolen assets, noting that they were quickly laundered using cross-chain swaps, crypto mixers, and other obfuscation methods to evade detection. So apparently 20% of the funds, or about 300 million, have just disappeared, while 77% are still traceable. And I'm not sure why they don't mention that 3%. It's not accounted for, but it's only $45 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket when you're talking about a theft of 1.5 billion. It's just a little bit here, a little bit there. But
yeah, that might even been the fees for the different mixers and stuff like that. I don't know if they would have counted it separately, but
I just find it funny. Not funny. I don't mean to make humor of this situation, but like I thought the whole point of these cryptocurrencies was to have a journal that you could trace. But for 20% of the funds to just disappear, it's like, all right, so that whole thing that that whole thing that we used here about a journal and a blockchain,
smart contracts and all that.
I guess it doesn't work anymore. I'm not too sure. And everyone who is a cryptocurrency expert in some way, shape, or form, I'm aware I'm being very generic and ignorant about this here, but it just seems odd to me that $300 million could just disappear.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, well, what was the last place they sent it to?
Well, I think they said gone dark. So
did they withdraw it? Okay. So cool. So there's a dark cryptocurrency out there.
It's there. You just can't see it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that first, because I feel like 1.5 billion is probably a drop in that bucket.
Yeah. All right. Again, off the rails. So the attack took place while Bybit was conducting a routine transfer from a cold wallet to a warm wallet. A cold wallet being one that's essentially air-gapped, and a warm one being accessible from the internet. Apparently, hackers exploited the UI of this safe multi-sig cold wallet through a sophisticated phishing attack, masking the specific transaction, which resulted in the change of the smart contract. So this allowed attackers to transfer out the funds from the compromised cold wallet, splitting it into 39 different addresses. Ouch.
Yikes.
So this attack continues a well-documented pattern of North Korean cyber operations targeting cryptocurrency exchanges, with the stolen funds likely being used to finance the regime's weapons program and evade international sanctions.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, 300 million buys a couple missiles.
You know what's funny, Chris? Funny again. I'm using this term in a negative sense here, but not to give threat actors compliments whatsoever. But I actually this past weekend spoke at a conference talking about the business of cybercrime. A lot of it fueled by the conversations you and I have on here. And one of the things that I did is I kind of painted a picture of Lazarus Group as if they were a legitimate business. And one of the highlights that came up during the discussion was proficient in fund transfer management and things like that. And without a doubt, one thing that this threat actor has learned and figured out very well is, I got to say, they're probably some of the foremost experts in how to steal cryptocurrency. But to do that, they're also experts in cryptocurrency because they study how these processes work, and they find the way. And if you think about interjecting yourself into that process of like understanding the flow or the transfer from a cold wallet to a warm wallet or vice versa, and knowing exactly when to intercept, how to masquerade to look legitimate, where to inject a legitimate looking transaction or whatever the result might be, it's a lot of work and effort that goes into it. So for anyone who's like, this is just another crypto theft, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of engineering that goes into this kind of stuff.
And I almost wonder, we talk about like the remote North Korean IT workers that are everywhere, to have knowledge of when these things happen and what kind of emails get sent out and stuff. I almost feel like there had to be an insider element to something like this, but I'm sure all
feels that way sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It feels that way, but at the same time, I think it's just like the wild, wild west. Once again, one of the things I think we've talked about before is that a lot of these crypto environments, cryptocurrency environments, they're startups operating at breakneck speed. I'm not going to say security is not a feature there, but I mean, sometimes it's an afterthought. And, the fact that you are dealing inherently with something that is a very kind of odd financial device in the first place. And what I mean by that, everyone, is if you think, Chris, about like stealing cash, right? You have that physical idea of kind of walking into a bank and depositing cash, or walking into a bank and withdrawing cash. Like there's a physical thing you can hold on to. And if someone takes that money out of your hand, you can feel that, as opposed to, all right, I entered in these 2 super long hash addresses and I'm transferring from one to the other, and I'll just sit and wait. And okay, it's taking an extra minute. All right, well, I'll just go grab a coffee and come back and see what happens. And then wait, where is it? Yeah. I've had this happen to me before. I've transferred cryptocurrencies around from a cold wallet to a warm wallet or something like that. And there's a moment where you're like, I hope I typed that incorrectly. Like there's an inherent, an inherent part to this that makes you kind of pause. You know what I mean? So yeah, in any event, it's a shame to see this happen. It's a lot of money out the door to a group that we really don't want to see have any money at all.
Yeah. And to your last comment, the Lazarus Group has been behind multiple high-profile cryptocurrency thefts in recent years, with stolen funds now exceeding several $1 billion. Their attack methods often involve a mix of social engineering, phishing, and exploiting vulnerabilities in smart contracts or private key management systems. The FBI and other law enforcement agencies are working to track and recover the stolen funds, but North Korea's advanced laundering techniques make asset retrieval extremely difficult, and apparently 20% gone. So this record-breaking crypto heist highlights ongoing security challenges within the digital asset industry. Despite efforts by exchanges to enhance security, North Korean hackers continue to adapt, using increasingly sophisticated techniques to bypass detection. This incident raises concerns about the role of cryptocurrency in global finance, crime, and national security, prompting renewed calls for stronger regulations and improved cybersecurity measures across the industry. Law enforcement agencies worldwide remain focused on countering these threats, but as long as cryptocurrency remains a valuable target, North Korean cyber operations are expected to persist. Well, that's an insightful last comment there.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's going to continue.
Yeah,
we've got to find ways to bolster these things down. We really do. We've got to find ways to lock them down.
Yeah, or go back to fiat currency. I don't know.
There we go. Go back to legitimate currency and international sanctions. Who knows, Chris? Maybe in a few weeks from now, we won't have to worry about the North Koreans anymore.
I'd love to carry around little things of gold, a little satchel with some gold in it.
There we go, man. Right. Yeah, this is reaching back to the medieval times where you have your, you walk around with your money, and then when Robin Hood comes along, he takes. Okay, never mind. We're going off the rails.
Rails, back on the rails. So the BadPilot hacking campaign has been linked to Russia's Sandworm threat group, a unit of the GRU known for cyber espionage and disruptive attacks. This campaign primarily targets network edge devices like routers and firewalls, exploiting vulnerabilities to establish persistent access. By compromising these devices, attackers can maintain stealthy command and control, or C2 channels, bypassing traditional endpoint security measures. The campaign is believed to support broader Russian cyber operations, including intelligence gathering and pre-positioning for potential sabotage. Well, we won't know much about this in the near future.
Yeah, I was going to say, this might be the last article we ever read about Russian threat actors attacking the United States, because the Department of Defense has been instructed to stop looking at them. Whatever. We're not.
I don't know if that's confirmed. Actually, we should be careful there, because I read a post from Kim Zetter on LinkedIn today, and she was saying that there's 3 articles out. One saying it's happening, one saying it's not happening, and another one that was asking what the hell is going on, and none of them could cite sources. So I think it's all conjecture as of when we're recording this, but. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few hours, let alone the next few days. So
I will add a little bit of Matt's flavor to this segment, which is what I'm usually known for doing here, and just say that if it was official, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It wouldn't surprise me that order came down, but we'll just leave that off to the side and talk about the matter at hand.
Yes.
This interesting campaign here in this one. One of the things that I think was interesting, or I should say one of the additional things was interesting here is, Chris, oftentimes when we talk about what threat actors are going after, how they're exploiting, how they're targeting, and things like that, it's usually like one particular software suite or one particular thing we're looking at, a perimeter device or a vulnerable piece of software or whatever it is. This article actually calls out that there have been exploitation attempts of everything ranging from Microsoft Exchange, Outlook, Screen Connect, Fortinet. Didn't imagine that, did you? Zimbra, Collaboration Suite, JetBrains, TeamCity. I mean, all sorts of stuff in there. And I feel like this is one of those kind of like blast it all, Hail Mary, spray and pray type of attacks where it's like, let's just hit with everything. The oldest CVE is 2021. That's only one of them. Everything else is 22 through 24. But nonetheless, it feels like this group is really trying to get some footholds into quite a few organizations out there.
So to mitigate the risks associated with BadPilot, organizations should prioritize patching vulnerabilities in network devices and enforcing multi-factor authentication.
Patching? No way.
Network segmentation and strict access control can limit the lateral movement of attackers once inside the network. Security teams should also monitor network traffic for anomalies such as unusual outbound connections or unexpected configuration changes. Given Sandworm's history of targeting critical infrastructure, organizations in high-risk sectors should assume they are potential targets and adopt a proactive defense strategy. Well, there you go. There you have it.
I mean,
patch.
In a real sense, like I was kind of leading towards that. I was gently softballing that one in there by being like, the oldest CVE is only 2021. Like it's only been 4 years. Yeah. But patch and update these things. I mean, this is okay. Let's just get down to brass tacks. This is another situation where an adversary is rolling in with older vulnerabilities, hoping that someone's going to have either a perimeter-facing device or something internal, relatively close to the perimeter, that they're going to be able to take advantage of. Again, if I repeat the list, not repeat, but go over the software, ConnectWise, Screen Connect, Microsoft Outlook, Exchange, Fortinet, FortiClient, EMS, all things that likely would be perimeter facing, I think, if not close to the perimeter, and something that they're going to go after. So just patch, please, everyone out there. Like Chris and I will continue to say it as long as we need to on a weekly basis, but I would love it if y'all did it.
Yeah. All right. Next one up. GreyNoise has observed active exploitation of CVE-2025-0108, a critical authentication bypass vulnerability in Palo Alto Networks PAN-OS. I think we've heard that one a couple times before. This vulnerability allows... What's that?
It sounds like it, I think.
Yeah, PAN-OS. I'm sure we've covered it in the last few months. This vulnerability allows unauthenticated attackers to gain administrative access to affected firewall devices, posing a significant risk to organizations relying on PAN-OS for network security. The flaw impacts specific configurations that enable security assertion markup language, or SAML, authentication. Exploiting it could grant attackers the ability to modify firewall rules, exfiltrate data, or establish persistent access within a network. Palo Alto Networks has released patches urging organizations to update their systems immediately. So what's the lesson here, Matt?
Patch, I think. No, this one actually, to be fair, Chris, to pull from our institutional knowledge here on the Cybersecurity Defenders Podcast, this actually ropes in a couple of things we've talked about before. So number one, we have an actively exploited CVE. Sorry, let me back up. Let me rephrase. We have a very highly risked or high impact CVE, number one. So high severity flaw allows for unauthenticated attackers to execute specific scripts leading to unauthorized access. So bad stuff, right? Number one. Number two, publicly facing POC, which is how adversaries are likely taking advantage of it. Three, it is on the CISA KEV known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, which for us has been a barometer to say, now you should care if you didn't before. So what that means for everyone who might be hearing some of these terms for the first time, CISA, at least as they're still operational for now in early March 2025, we might be writing history here, but CISA has a KEV, the known exploited vulnerability list, which is kind of a list of vulnerabilities that it sees in the wild that are being actively exploited. That means we're not waiting for threat actors to figure out how to take advantage of it. They already are taking advantage of it. And I've used this as a barometer before to say, if you needed some sort of business risk barometer of like, do we need to patch yet? Do we need to patch yet? This is it. This is the tripwire of it's out there and it's being actively exploited. So let's not wait for Chris and I to be talking about Sandworm in 2 years and figure out that they've been going after this thing. Go and patch now and assess the risk accordingly. But it's out there and adversaries are using it. There's plenty of information. Hat tip to the folks over at GreyNoise for providing this information. I think this one's actually got a little bit of this one's actually a little bit older in the time that we're talking about it, but it has a recent update to the KEV list. So definitely something for folks to watch out for, and one that I would prioritize if you're dealing with PAN-OS perimeter devices. And
all
in
right,
this case, PAN-OS firewalls I wanted to add on there.
What makes this CVE particularly dangerous is its accessibility. Firewall appliances are typically exposed to the internet, making them attractive targets. GreyNoise reports that scanning and exploitation attempts began shortly after public disclosure, indicating the threat actors are rapidly incorporating this vulnerability into their attack strategies. Given the critical nature of firewalls and enterprise security, a successful compromise could provide attackers with deep visibility into network traffic and the ability to manipulate security controls. Organizations failing to patch promptly risk significant operational and security impacts. To mitigate the risk, organizations should immediately apply the vendor-recommended patches and review firewall configurations for any exposure to unauthorized access. Disabling SAML authentication or implementing additional access controls such as IP whitelisting can reduce attack surface exposure. Continuous monitoring for anomalous activity on PAN-OS devices is also essential, as attackers may attempt to maintain persistence even after patches are applied. This incident highlights the broader risk of unpatched network infrastructure and the need for a proactive vulnerability management strategy. So to all you builders out there, here's a spot that needs some help.
There it is. Yeah. Just saying. Just saying. And I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor this one too much, folks. Chris and I have spent a lot of time talking about the need for patching and its relevancy and why we should be focused on it. I hope anyone out there who's listening is got some sort of strategy in place. If not, I mean, this is the best time to start. Best time to start was yesterday. Second best time to start is today.
Amen. Next up, security researcher Paul Butler has demonstrated a novel technique for smuggling arbitrary data using emojis. I love this one. Leveraging the way modern text encoding and rendering systems handle Unicode characters. The method takes advantage of the fact that emoji characters can store additional metadata beyond their visible representation. By encoding binary data within the modifiers of emoji sequences, such as skin tone, variations, or zero-width joiners, Butler shows that attackers could covertly embed payloads within seemingly innocent text. This technique could bypass traditional security filters that do not inspect the deeper structure of Unicode encoded text. So I don't think this one's a security threat yet, but just like interesting, and goes to show like how deep the rabbit hole goes, you know?
Yeah, so this is actually, I think, something that will end up being probably exploited by some threat actor somewhere, Chris, but it's going to be in like one of the weirdest of cases. You know what I mean? So I can remember there was a threat actor who for a long time, I'm not going to say for a long time, sorry, it was maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, was kind of embedding various types of Unicode and strings and stuff like that inside of emails. And the point of them was to bypass email detection systems and stuff like that. And long story short is if you go and you read kind of the RFC for SMTP, there's actually a lot of things allowed in certain fields and within the SMTP headers. It's not just plain text, right? There's obviously accommodations for other languages, but this is how you can receive an email that has an emoji in the subject line now.
Right.
And I remember when that kind of first started to happen, there were folks like, oh, did you know you can do this thing, right? And it starts off as like a marketing ploy where it's like, hey, did you know you could put emojis inside of the subject line? Great way to grab people's attention, so on and so forth. Well, now we've got ways to embed hidden messages inside of emojis. So in a weird way, it's like a micro steganography in an odd way. But what this really does is I think it takes advantage of probably what was an original structure designed to support whatever emojis needed. And then, oh, look, there's extra space inside of here. So I almost, Chris, like chalk this up kind of as like protocol abuse, where it's the same thing as like exfiltration via DNS, right? It's not what it was designed for, but someone figured out, hey, there's some extra room inside of these packets here. Let's just squeeze what we can inside of there. And I think it's very akin to that. And same thing with DNS C2 or DNS exfiltration. It's possible. I don't think it's widely used, but it is possible. And some threat actor out there is going to opportunistically be like, hey, look at that. Or maybe we just uncovered a brand new method of exfiltration, Chris. Stuff things inside of emojis, and then all you see is an emoji stream just being sent.
50 megs of emoji. What could that be about?
I mean, yeah, I tell you what, a lot of network tools would have a hard time rendering it.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. Uh-oh.
So one of the key implications of this technique is its potential use in data exfiltration and covert communication.
I didn't know you were going to say that. I'm just saying.
Many security tools focus on detecting malicious content and network traffic, file transfers, or encoded text, but they may not analyze how emojis are structured at the byte level. Since emojis are widely used across messaging platforms, social media, and even logs, attackers could exploit this method to sneak data past security controls without raising suspicion. Additionally, since different platforms render emojis differently, detection mechanisms would need to account for variations in encoding and display. If I have to start writing detection rules with emojis in them, I'm gonna need to maybe go have a drink.
This detection written with the help of a beer. You never know. Yeah, I mean, this is another area where like I hate this. Like someone out there, Chris, probably like, does your detection language look for emojis? You know, and then there's always going to be some reason as to like why one is better than the other. I'll just say like, I don't know. Let's wait till we see this one actively exploited. I mean, I don't want to start writing detections for emojis. They would fire all the time because humans send emojis all the time. But maybe that's it, hiding in the needle in the haystack.
I remember when they launched the Swift programming language over at Apple, and in the demo, they were showing that you could use emojis in the code. And
because that's what you want to show a bunch of developers.
Maybe I'm dating myself. So
no. I think you're bringing up the right point, which is like we don't need that.
Just going back to hieroglyphics, right? They had
that's right. Yeah, exactly. There we go. We're communicating in symbols. Wait, we are. This is like, we are going back.
It's all symbols. It's zeros and ones at the bottom.
I know. It's just all right. Let's not go too far down this one.
Rails, back on the rails. Mitigating this type of data smuggling would require deeper inspection of text-based data streams, specifically analyzing Unicode sequences for anomalies. Organizations could implement stricter content filtering policies and leverage machine learning models to identify patterns associated with covert data encoding. While this technique is currently theoretical, it underscores the need for security teams to stay ahead of evolving data exfiltration methods, particularly those exploiting overlooked areas of modern computing. Well, there you have it. Throw some more compute at it and just have the machine learning algorithms process every bit that goes through your network.
I mean, that solves everything.
Yes.
Maybe a little AI and blockchain problem solved.
We're going to need fusion soon. So whoever's working on that, please get us there.
Yeah, give us a holler. We'd love to have you on.
All right. I think we're getting there. Next one up, Kitty Stealer is a newly identified malware targeting Mac OS systems designed to steal sensitive user data such as credentials, browser cookies, and cryptocurrency wallets. Unlike many Mac OS threats that rely on exploiting system vulnerabilities, Kitty Stealer operates as a user space application, often distributed through social engineering attacks like fake software downloads or Trojanized applications. Once executed, the malware exfiltrates stolen data to a remote command and control server, allowing attackers to access compromised accounts or conduct further malicious activity. Given the increasing adoption of macOS in enterprise environments, this malware represents a growing threat to users who assume Apple's platform is inherently secure because, Matt, as we all know from the marketing campaign in the early 2000s, Apple computers don't get viruses.
Hi, I'm a Mac. I'm a PC. Remember those? Those were so clever. Those were so clever. Yeah, this one, by the way, hat tip, as always, to the blog writers for this one, because the title of this blog is Potential Stealer, Pergler in Process. And then the thing is named Kitty Stealer. How clever. How clever. I love it. I love it. First off, naming someone's pieces of malware Kitty Stealer. I absolutely love that. I just got to say there was probably a threat actor out there somewhere who, worked very hard in writing this piece of malware. They spent a lot of time working on subroutines and figuring out how to steal things from Apple. And they are utilizing the security framework API to query the macOS keychain. I mean, some development work went into this thing. And then for you to just turn around and say, look at this cute little kitty is amazing. But then to write a blog post saying this stealer, which we're calling Pergler. I mean, come on, just genius. Yeah. Well done. I love the puns. Here for them all. But onto the serious stuff for everyone here. I think this shows an evolution, and it's not the first time we've talked about this or seen it, but I think it continues to show an evolution in adversarial development, which is, once again, utilizing Apple's security framework APIs to query the macOS keychain. Deep research into the macOS subsystem, understanding how the APIs work, understanding how to take advantage of them. And I would argue, Chris, like we're getting to a point where some of these subsystems are so deep that it requires a pretty in-depth level of visibility to even detect these types of things, right? So regardless of the fact that, they're going through and in the blog post, they do talk about how to access the keychain for Chrome, how Chrome and Exodus files and how curl works, so on and so forth. I would really just go a step further and say we need to continue to understand more about how macOS malware works because it's getting pretty advanced pretty quickly for like the average detection engineer out there.
Mm-hmm. And given the high profile targets, I think the organizations that are giving Macs to all their developers tend to be better resourced and probably working on higher stake stuff. So
maybe it's one of those where like, I feel like you could go both ways. It's either a slew of college students who are writing term papers or it's a bunch of startups. Yeah. And obviously I'm being very generic and somewhat facetious about this, but it's definitely a wide reaching audience now, probably more than it used to be, I think.
Sure. Yeah, and there's probably some self-bias in there because I prefer a Mac, even though I spend my days on a Chromebook.
No comment. No comment.
One of the notable aspects of Kitty Stealer is its availability to evade traditional macOS security measures. Since it doesn't exploit system-level vulnerabilities, it can bypass many of Apple's built-in defenses, such as System Integrity Protection, or SIP, and Gatekeeper. If users inadvertently grant it the necessary permissions, the malware targets widely used applications extracting saved credentials and authentication tokens, which can then be used for account takeovers or financial fraud. Attackers distributing Kitty Stealer appear to be focusing on social engineering, tricking users into executing the malware under the guise of legitimate software. To mitigate the risk of Kitty Stealer, users and organizations should be cautious when downloading software from unofficial sources, enforce strict application whitelisting, and implement endpoint detection and response solutions tailored for macOS. Regular monitoring of system logs for unauthorized access attempts and unusual network activity can help detect infections early. Given the increasing sophistication of macOS targeted threats, security teams should adopt a proactive stance, treating Apple's ecosystem as a viable target rather than assuming it's inherently more secure than other operating systems. I mean, I think we've known that one for a while. It seems like the last couple of years, Mac has been been in the queue of things we talk about quite a bit more. So yeah, get some EDR, write some rules. It sounds like lateral movement and failed login attempts are probably a good place to start.
I would say so. And I would also highly recommend that if you have the ability to do so, folks, tap into that underlying macOS subsystem, that macOS logging, and take advantage of it. Seriously, like there's a lot of opportunities to, I think, where we're going from an EDR perspective and the way things are going, the opportunity to kind of dig into the macOS unified logs and the ability to like extract from those and write detections based on that content is just too good now. And I would highly recommend folks out there, if you have a Mac environment, be utilizing every source available to you. And the unified logs is a great place to start. I would be willing to bet, Chris, there's probably some good indicators inside of there for what this activity is, if anyone can run it live and test it.
Sure. And for anybody listening, I'll do the little pitch here. LimaCharlie supports unified Mac logs.
It does. In fact, I think I might have once done a webcast on that.
Okay, next up, Sequoia researchers have uncovered a previously unknown IoT botnet named PolarEdge, which has been operating covertly for an extended period. Unlike many well-documented botnets derived from Mirai, PolarEdge appears to be an entirely new malware strain with a distinct code base. This suggests that its developers are not merely modifying existing threats, but are investing in a purpose-built attack framework. The botnet primarily targets Linux-based IoT devices such as routers, network cameras, and embedded systems by exploiting weak credentials and unpatched software vulnerabilities. Once a device is compromised, PolarEdge establishes persistence by modifying system configurations and deploying mechanisms to evade detection. It then connects to a command and control infrastructure that facilitates remote execution of malicious commands. Sequoia's analysis suggests that this infrastructure is distributed across multiple layers, making takedown efforts more complex. I don't know why, but reading that just made me wonder how many Raspberry Pis are sitting out there on the internet with default passwords.
I will tell you, I know 2 of them went offline in the past month. I'll leave that out there.
I might have to hit Shodan up later and see what's what.
Yeah, no, this is one of those situations, again, where I think it was the Mirai botnet. If anyone remembers Mirai from way back in the day, I mean, less than, 5-6 years ago, where it was like this massive global botnet that was, and they were launching huge DDoS attacks and stuff like that, Chris. One of those situations where, once again, someone's figured out, hey, there's a bunch of stuff facing the internet that is insecure and has easy to take advantage of protocols or easy to take advantage of credentials. Let's turn it into a thing. And the Linux, this particular botnet, PolarEdge, Linux-based, takes advantage of Linux-based IoT devices, routers, network cameras, embedded systems. And here we go. Weak credentials and unpatched vulnerabilities. We're here again.
Yes.
Like, we're here again. I feel like we're going to just see waves of this happen where kind of like the Mirai botnet kind of dies down. And then we come back up because the botnet may have died, but the actual like access to these things has not. And furthermore, I know just from like walking around my local town and city, there's just more devices online now.
More and more and more. It's crazy.
All the time.
Yeah.
I mean, nearly everything is internet connected these days, which don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of. I'm a huge proponent of this lifestyle.
I don't think toothbrushes should run Java. That's just a personal opinion.
We've had this conversation before. I like the toothbrushes that give me a counter built in every 2 minutes, when you're done. I kind of like that convenience because then I don't have to look
My son
at
has a blinking light on his where he knows to switch from side to side, but it is not internet enabled.
What powers that light, sir? You never know.
It's a LED and a capacitor and a little 555 timer. Right.
Hey, there's a clock in there somewhere. That means there's a battery, and just in case you want to check on the status. But I'm in agreement with you. Not everything needs to be connected, number one. Number two, if it is connected, please secure it. And folks, I'm not talking to the developers here. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the users, the consumers. Like, we're in the same capacity as we are with a cloud provider. It is not the cloud provider's job to secure your EC2 instance, right? It is not the toothbrush developer's job to secure your toothbrush. Lock down your networks.
Don't say that.
And learn a little bit of security.
Yeah, and I think that gone are the days where you can just say, "Well, I'm not technical." I mean, guess what? This is the world we live in, and you just gotta, get the robot to help you. Hop on ChatGPT. It'll guide you through.
ChatGPT.
I used to tell my dad to Google things when he'd ask me questions. Now I tell him to talk to the robot. So
ChatGPT, help me segment my network for IoT devices. I am running this type of router. Please give me a walkthrough. And
explain it to me like I'm a 67-year-old ex-construction worker.
And if that doesn't work for you, ask it to explain to you like you're a golden retriever, and that'll work as well. But Chris, I think you got a little more insight.
Yeah, we got a little more. We're almost there, man. This has been a long and wonderful one. So a key aspect of PolarEdge's architecture is its modular design, which allows operators to update or expand its capabilities without needing to redeploy the malware entirely. This adaptability makes the botnet highly resilient to takedown efforts and allows attackers to modify its functionality based on evolving operational needs. Sequoia researchers identified various functional modules, including packet forwarding, SOCKS proxying, and attack execution modules. Notably, PolarEdge also employs encryption for its network communications, making it difficult for traditional security solutions to detect its activity. Researchers observed that the botnet leverages a custom binary protocol instead of standard HTTP or HTTPS for communication, further obfuscating its traffic. Additionally, it uses its use of multi-layered C2 servers and relay nodes complicates direct attribution and response efforts. Unlike many IoT botnets that focus primarily on DDoS attacks, PolarEdge appears to have a broader monetization strategy. The botnet is capable of turning infected devices into proxies, allowing attackers to sell access to compromised IoT systems for use in credential stuffing, spam campaigns, and other illicit activities. The presence of packet capture modules also suggests a potential interest in credential harvesting, where attackers could extract sensitive data passing through infected devices. Furthermore, evidence suggests that PolarEdge operators are actively developing and refining its capabilities, indicating ongoing maintenance and potential expansion of the botnet operations. The lack of significant public reporting before Sukhoi discovery implies that the botnet has remained largely undetected, raising concerns about its true scale and impact. Yeah, this one's definitely interesting, and I recommend everybody go check out this article. I think they did a really great job of breaking it down. Really interesting stuff when you think about controlling thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of devices on all across the world. It's an interesting space.
Let's not make it easy for adversaries to build botnets.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Secure your devices, folks, please. Some of you need to patch. Some of you need to secure your devices. We all have a little bit of homework to do today.
Yeah. And reevaluate whether that Raspberry Pi sitting in the corner of your room needs to be plugged in and turned on.
Or if that toothbrush is running Java, in fact.
Whew. We made it, Matt. That seemed like a big one today.
It's always a fun time being here, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. Good stuff. Chris, it's great to chat with you again, sir.
Yes, sir. We'll talk again next week.
All right, man. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.